Here in about 3 minutes, if you'll be patient.
All right, well, I just, thank you.
We're going to do some introduction. And I'll turn it on so you can actually hear me.
Kind of nice.
Be sure to turn Larry Don's off, will you?
Dang.
Wow.
Ouch.
Did you say turn it on or off? This. No more public comment.
Yeah, public comment's over.
I deserve that every once in a while.
Okie dokie.
I see that you finally got across the street safely. I was a little curious. Yeah,
You mean today?
today.
Well, you know, all of those posts talk to you, and it's confusing.
When it says stop. What's confusing
Don't
about
go,
that?
don't go.
Walk. It's not a very friendly voice. It's
I think you ought to take that up with CDOT. I think you need to go to CDOT and
thing I think that's
take,
maybe talk to CDOT about, me, I mean, like, is the speed limit coming in on 491, I think at E, it needs to go to 55, as it, E, and then it starts around that corner, and then you approaches N, and traffic starts to get heavier. Where does it go there? Oh gosh, not till you get.
pass
Right by the
down by the
Maverick.
MVI, somewhere, 50 for that intersection where L comes in there. They bring it down
We're
to
still
50.
5 miles out of town at P Road, right?
Yeah.
Oh, but it's, you know, there's P Road, and then it makes a slight bend,
Mhm.
comes in toward town, and that's just about the time traffic starts to pick up and back up, and N is a.
Oh, that's
sort of a
nothing.
nasty intersection, I think. I don't like, I never turn on it very often, but I do see people.
You've got great line of sight distance at that in-road intersection. That's what CDOT says.
Oh, is that what they say?
Your side of, your line of distance is plenty ample for anything that should come about there.
Boy, turning left off of N, you know, either direction is kind of a.
Well, coming out of the John Deere parking lot's just as bad. Yeah. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're back in session. We have a public hearing this afternoon starting at 1:30. Kim, would you call the roll?
Is this a public hearing?
Isn't it a public hearing?
I don't have any information for a public
Okay,
hearing.
I'm sorry, it's a continuance of a previous public hearing. I'm sorry. I guess, should we call the roll again?
should.
John,
Yeah, we
probably.
should.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
should. And do you have the paperwork for the original one?
Do I?
Pointing at Shaq. I bet you I can pull it up.
Commissioner Attell,
Present.
Commissioner Candelaria,
Here?
Commissioner Supla,
Here.
Attorney Baxter,
Here.
Administrator Powers,
Here.
and Kim Purcell, County Clerk. Maybe I can just read this.
Yeah.
On 12/10/2018, the Montezuma County Board of County Commissioners asked for a February 5th, 2019 continuance for a review and determination of an AR3-9 rezoning request and single lot development subdivision application submitted by Arvita Higgins on property located at 21510 Road W, Lewis, Colorado, located south of Road W, east of Road 21.4, situated in Section 6, Township 37 North, Range 16 West, NPM. County Attorney John Baxter was asked to review resolution number P-40-96E.
Okay, thank you, Kim. Before we get started, might be a good idea for us to introduce our new planning director, Mr. Don Haley. If you'd stand up and This is Don Haley, who's been chosen as our new planning director and been on the job 3 days, and we're glad to have him on board, so welcome.
Thank you.
You bet.
Welcome.
Haley. Okay, tell us what,
I would also like to ask if we could do the signing of this plat first.
oh, okay, I guess we
before
can do
get
that.
started.
Okay. It showed it a second, but we'll do it first.
Yes. I figured it would be easier that way.
Okay.
What would be easier is to do the plat the same time, like we used to do, where if we approve it, you already have the plat written, and then the same day that we do that, we sign the plat.
Well,
Could we
this
do
is a
that?
different plat.
I know, but
Yeah.
we also did the Cruzan deal last week, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's when we should have had the plat.
Oh, well, they didn't have it ready.
Well, hopefully we can fix that problem now that we got a new planning director.
Maybe so.
Couldn't we hear about the planning director? I'm just wondering. Also, no,
Public comment comes at the end of the.
but Mr. Chairman, could the planning director maybe introduce himself and tell him,
We did introduce.
I don't know anything about him. You guys do.
He's just been paroled.
This is yourself. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now on to our business. This is for the minor subdivision that Mrs. Higgins is wanting to do there in Lewis. The resolution was the thing that Mr. Baxter was going to review. Upon multiple research and reading of the resolution, Mr. Baxter and I have come to an agreement that the wording on this exemption resolution.
We're talking about resolution P40-96E.
Yes, yes.
Go ahead, sorry.
The wording is for the 10-acre tract that was created by this resolution. And the wording says that it cannot be
That there won't be
exempted-
any more
No,
exemptions.
on this property. But it is for that 10-acre tract. It is not for the complete acreage that Mrs. Higgins has.
That's my best interpretation of it. That's my assessment of it. I
So
think the
that-
most intelligible way to read that without more, anything specific that the commissioners, I think they would have or should have at least, if they wanted it to mean anything else, they should have included more than that. So I think what they are referring to is the 10-acre tract that was removed, and there won't be any further exemptions granted to that 10-acre tract, not the rest of it.
Okay.
Is the way I understood. And I think that's what you all were curious about, is whether or not that no more exemptions applied to the original property or to the smaller
10-acre
one.
parcel that was broken off of it.
And that 10-acre tract is on one of those maps that is in this application.
So now the question being asked is can Mrs. Higgins now take and subdivide off of her remaining piece of land? She wants to do a subdivision.
She wants to take a 6 more or less tract off of the property that she has that has the home on it, and then make a 60-foot easement around the pond to access the lower piece. And she will be doing that as agricultural only. It will not go into any kind of subdivision or anything like that. That's what Mrs. Higgins would like to see, is it remain agricultural.
Do you have that map?
The size of the size of the remaining is going to be 50 plus.
And the only access to that 50-plus will be this easement that Mrs.
Yes.
Higgins is making around the pond.
Yes,
And she still owns that 50-acre tract?
yes. She owns it all. The 6 plus that she's going to make, and she owns the 50 plus.
Mm-hmm. Is that going to be a deed restriction on that piece of property, that that land will never be subdivided or used for anything but agriculture?
Yes, she will make, that's what she would like to specify, that it remains agricultural.
What planning and zoning do with this?
I have there,
My understanding is that it didn't go back through planning and zoning, which is what, I think what we contemplated maybe.
is
But
it going back through?
that was, I mean, and I could have been wrong, but I thought it was gonna go back through planning and zoning. And I don't believe it did go back through planning and zoning.
Well, they did approve,
Prior to our last hearing.
yes. They, with the conditions that the platted easement assessing the southern part of the property be 60 feet, 60-foot easement.
They did already approve it.
Okay.
And then after that is when I think we learned of this potential restriction, saying that there can't be any further exemptions on the property, and so
Okay.
they did initially approve it.
May I make a comment, please? I know that in the past with exemptions, because as a prior planning director, I worked with the exemption process through the years. And it was not unheard of at that time for the commissioners to say, we've done the original exemption, we've amended the exemption, there will be no further amendments to this property. An exemption is specifically to the tract of land that is described out in the legal description, in the exemption document itself. And so just a little bit of prior knowledge.
So that's what the commissioners did back at that time on that 10-acre parcel, that there be no more exemptions granted that parcel.
Yes, sir.
And that's the best of your understanding, John, too?
I think that's how we have to interpret it without other evidence. Yes, that's
Okay.
what I would say.
Okay.
So it doesn't restrict what she's going forward for the 6 plus and the
No.
53?
Correct.
No.
Okay.
No, sir. No, sir.
And the easement is is it on the north side?
The easement will be on the west side of the pond.
Can you maybe bring
No,
up the
but I
map
mean,
to show them?
off of the county road.
Where it comes off the county road, it's gonna run to the
On the
north
corner.
side of the
Oh, I'm
house,
sorry.
right?
Because there was a debate about
Some irrigation
the
pipe.
irrigation
Big
box.
maps. Put this on normal. There. Okay, so, I'll get my pointer. So, right here is the pond.
Mm-hmm.
There is an easement that goes across here, and there's an easement that goes down here. Mrs. Higgins' property has a driveway that goes to both. She will be using this easement going down, and it will come down this direction.
Where will she come off the county road? Off that corner of
Right
W
here.
and 20. She'll go straight across and then straight down. So she will create an easement on that north property line, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that what you plan on doing?
That's correct.
Yes.
So if I remember right, there was a shed there that was within the 60-foot easement. Is that correct?
Yes.
And is it inside the easement, or would it be?
It's 20 feet. The easement that my dad gave my brother is 20 feet. And that comes to the edge of the shed.
So is it, but you're saying it's gonna be 60 feet?
That's what the commissioners, the planning commissioners would like to see, is the 60-foot easement.
So that means the shed needs to be moved off out of that easement?
They did not say anything about that.
Well, it seems if we're gonna have a 60-foot road easement, then that shed's not gonna be, that's gonna put that shed right in the middle of the easement. I'm not
They
sure.
They didn't mention anything about the shed.
Did they?
There.
Why were they asking for a 60-foot easement
Yeah.
there, do you know?
For emergency services and for Montezuma County Sheriff's Office.
But it's for agricultural use, so I don't understand that.
They just wanted the 60-foot easement for emergency services only.
Didn't Mr. Mays put 30 foot on his survey? Thought he did. I'm not sure. We don't have a survey.
There's a 30-foot coming to the south off of that intersection. There's a 30-foot easement coming down to that 10-acre parcel.
No.
This is just gonna be a private driveway?
I guess it's gonna be, this is just gonna be a private road to access that 50 acres to the south?
Yes.
Right, I mean,
And it's
it's,
only going to be, she explained that it's only going to be for the agricultural purposes only.
so I don't know why, and I wish I did know why, the P and Z thought that it should be 60. They might have had really valid reasons for that. It doesn't have to be 60, but assuming that you all go with P and Z's recommendations, I mean, while she owns them both, it's up to her whether or not she keeps a shed in the easement or not.
Yeah.
If she sold one of these properties, then whoever the owner is that has a right to that easement
Can
could say, get that shed out.
off my easement, yeah.
Right. I mean, if she
Okay.
owns them both, you know,
Then-
she doesn't have to force
Well,
herself to.
Commissioner Pope just said that a 60-foot easement would be wise. He
Right.
didn't say that it would have to be,
Built to
Done.
that specs.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Gotcha, okay.
and it was only stated for emergency services only.
But if it's a 60-foot easement, even if the path is only 20 feet, whoever buys that is going to have the right to 60.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, you know, they might then be able to make the shed.
What
come
about,
off.
isn't there a landowner that also uses that? They wouldn't be, does your brother own behind it?
To the east,
Behind it, so you got two people using the easement.
Mhm.
Now, what if the brother says, if you approve it as 60 foot, even though his is 20 foot, and he says, well, I see it's 60 foot, I want 60 foot. How does that
I
work?
don't think he can do that, because in his deed, it specifically says 20 feet.
I'm just asking, I don't know.
I think that's probably correct. If he's been deeded only 20 feet and we're deeding somebody, and if there's going to be a subsequent deed that says 60, then they're going to have different rights.
Mrs. Higgins has also expressed that she will be keeping the home site. She will not be selling the 6 or more acres. She will be keeping the home site.
So it's gonna be a non-issue until
Until she
there's
decides.
another owner.
Yeah, until there's another owner, yeah.
And then what about
What's- No, go ahead.
the diversion box? Has that been
I think the
discussed?
diversion box is on the,
It's right on the corner.
Haven't discussed yet.
can't be, is it in the, it can't be in the middle of that road W. It can't be in that intersection. Is that diversion box isn't in the middle of that road, is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, the diversion box is in the middle of the easement.
I don't see it.
I don't either.
Is it not? Is it in the easement, the diversion
It
box?
hasn't been built yet.
The diversion box? What, hasn't been built yet?
No.
Then it can go anywhere if it hasn't been built. It makes sense to me to keep a 60-foot easement there if you're gonna, if County Road W ever extended to go down and
across.
capture
Yeah.
that 53 acres to the,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, south.
To the south, right. Let me ask you, is that existing fence line behind the pond, is that the property line for Ervil's property, or is that just a fence line?
It's a fence line. He has it in the wrong place.
Okay. So if you wanted, you could come around and go down on the east side of that pond if you wanted. So is that your land between his property line and the fence line?
Legally, yeah.
Well, that, to me, would make a bunch of sense then if you did a 60-foot easement over to his property line and then a 60-foot easement south. That takes that pond and everything out of play where you're not having to meander around that pond with a 60-foot easement. And because if that fence line is not a boundary line and his property line is where it shows, that might be a whole nother kettle of fish to fry, huh?
I'm not gonna like that, but we'll see.
Man.
But that fence is incorrect. Right.
It looks like it. If that's his boundary line,
Yeah, it makes way more sense to
To
go
come down,
to
sure.
go to that boundary line.
We may want to include him in the conversation and
Yeah.
hear what he thinks about where his boundary is.
yeah.
Where does the legal description state? Have you looked at the legal description? Where does it say the boundary line is?
I'm not sure how his property was created, if it was like, is there a exemption number on that?
It was originally more like a square, and then my dad thought we should have access to the pond, so he made come over here and do it along, vice versa.
There's a book and page that shows his,
432, page 105. Book 432.
excuse me.
How long's that fence been there?
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna ask.
I don't even,
Decades or?
I don't know when it was given to him.
Kind of complicates the ownership of it.
Because I don't think you can get a well, I guess you can if that exists. What is the existing fence line that comes up off of the 10-acre parcel, the fence line that comes up and zigzags over by the pond?
Oh,
What?
that's just a temporary thing.
So do you have a 60-foot easement between the pond and that 10-acre property line there?
I don't think so,
I don't-
right at the angle.
Yeah, I think that's a
Pretty narrow.
That's a screwy way to bring a road.
Well, they're trying to restrict me on both sides.
So are you planning on taking the pond out then?
You can't.
How come?
the water, you have restrictions with the water, conservation services, whatever, has to stay. That's my understanding.
Hmm.
So then how do you get the road through there if you can't take the pond out?
Well, I was just gonna make a road, a 30-foot easement road through there, so it was agricultural, so, I didn't think they needed more than that.
Difficult deal.
Yeah,
That doesn't make any sense.
yeah, it makes more sense to go over here, go straight up and go
Mhm.
straight out.
Yeah.
Make it real simple.
And I don't want to ask you
Yeah.
guys not to make a decision. Certainly, you have that authority. But if you want to run this back through P&Z, now that they, have these different questions that maybe they should
Well,
address.
it seems to me a crucial question is this existing fence on Mr. Higgins' property, if that's not the property boundary line, then it would make a world of sense for me to get that fence on his property line, and that would give her plenty of room to bring whatever easement she wants down that side and not mess with the pond or anything else.
And I don't know how
So-
feasible that is. I mean, I don't know Mr. Higgins, what their relationship is like, whether or not there's a dispute of ownership of that piece of land. I mean, it appears from this that the property line is not lined up with the fence, but there's other factors that might go
Mhm.
into that determination.
I wouldn't have a problem with that, letting it
Yeah.
go back to P&Z and let them get these questions answered for us and make sure that it complies with all of the regulations before it ever comes to us.
Has there ever been a property dispute on that land between your place and Mr. Higgins?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
But is it your impression that he thinks that you're consenting to the fence line being there on your property? Yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me. I just, maybe.
Yeah.
I guess that's why the question was, how long has the fence been there?
They told me I was paying taxes over to the other line. And if he were sold his, he couldn't get title insurance or something over to the other line, where the fence was.
Mhm.
I know there's some kind of a law for how long a fence has been in a spot, isn't there? 18
Right,
years?
but there's more to it than
Yeah.
that. But
It
yes,
didn't come into effect on the west side.
it's not just the simple fact of a fence being there for 18 years, but that's one of the factors.
Do you think we can get this maybe discussed with Mr. Higgins about that Mrs. Higgins wanting to do some development on her property, and from what we've seen here, his fence line's in the wrong place?
We can do our due diligence.
I mean, I don't want to grant this, because I think that other way that just doesn't make any sense at all to me. That's trying to put square pegs in round holes there.
It should follow the boundary line.
Yeah.
And if that is
Yeah, your
actually the
easements.
boundary line, it should be moved over.
Yeah.
Or that makes the most logical sense to me.
Yeah, and if Arvita can prove she's paying taxes on that property, or if that's where her legal description's on that.
That's not the be-all, end-all either, but that
But I
is
got
another
you.
factor.
There are many factors and everything.
I think it needs to go back to planning until it's cleaned up and they really have something that they can bring forth with a
Yeah, there's,
clear definition of what we're really looking at to
yeah, whose
approve.
property's whose and who's, what's what and who's whose.
What kind of time constraints, are we under any time pressures here? I mean, I hate to we already put this off.
I
just
know,
to-
but things keep coming up. And
Well, and I think there's people that want to make public comment.
There is
Can
public
they
comment.
do that with, even though we're going to send it back? I mean,
I can hear it. Are
I
you-
think it'd be more reasonable to bring up everything now than have it come up the next time we continue it and
postpone it
continue it
again.
again.
Do you guys have anything else to add to this today?
I think she's chomping.
Yeah. And give us your name and address if you would, please.
Michelle Porter, 21516 County Road W. Okay, my first thought is the division box that you were talking about. If you go 60 foot, you know, it's supposed to come off of that corner. And there is an agreement on the division box to be built in February or March, depending on weather. So that's why it's fixing to come up.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other question I had was the corner coming around the pond, but you kind of addressed that.
Well, let's go back to this division box. It's not going to be built in the County Road W right away.
No,
is it? Okay.
it's on the corner, where her proposed easement's supposed to come off of 21 and a half and W.
Yeah.
It's right there because the pipeline is already there. The existing irrigation pipeline is already there.
Well, gotcha. But it
So,
looks to me, the way they've got that diamond place there that you're putting your division box.
no, I don't know what
That's just
that
a
diamond
corner.
is.
Okay,
that's just a corner.
Is that
That's
just
all it is.
the
all right. Gotcha.
property pin or
Probably a
whatever?
cap, a brass cap or something, okay.
Right, because the property line or whatever was in the center of the road. I know that.
Okay.
So, but yeah, that division box is in that corner there. And it's, you know, that gate's only, think, what, 14 or 16 foot wide gate. So it sets right in there off that corner. Within that 20 foot of the easement is
Mhm.
where it was agreed upon to build.
Agreed on by all the property owners?
Mhm.
Okay.
And then the other, if I can, where you're talking about on the east side of the pond, it's a swamp. It stays wet all the time.
Mm.
So if you go to the east, I mean, that's not mine, but just giving you some information. It stays wet over there all the time. And when you irrigate, it all runs right down there. That's a watershed to the east of the pond, and then the outlet for the pond comes around and follows that little, kind of that little jag right there, and my corner is right there, and there's not 60 foot. You're lucky if you got 12 or 14 foot from my corner to the bottom of that pond
Wow.
dam. You have to either come right across that pond dam and drop right straight down. So that was my other question, because I haven't seen a road plot, because that was supposed to have one, and I haven't seen that, so I didn't know where that road was going.
Yeah.
So the irrigation box, it can still stay in that 20-foot easement, correct? Just lower it to the south until you get it out of the right-of-way, that 60-foot right-of-way?
Well, and Greg was with us, and Greg Fleming, he works with NRCS, and we all looked at it, and if we move it anywhere, the water flow, it's gonna affect, I don't know the correct terminology, but yeah.
It's a gravity system.
Right, and if it he said that's about the only option we had. To split it right there, and
Well, then Arvita's driveway into her house comes down,
both of us use that same driveway.
same driveway.
Yeah, you come from W and go south,
Yeah.
and that goes to the 10 acres.
Right.
Where we live.
And then it also accesses Dent's old house.
Yes.
So she could take her 60-foot easement from there and go from her property up to the boundary line, avoiding your irrigation
Yeah,
box, hit her
technically.
property line on the top, and then come down
Yeah,
another.
but then we still have the issue at the pond.
Well, and
Yeah, but yes.
she may have to build a road through a swamp. That's
Yeah,
why they
well, yeah,
have big
that's-
rocks and big, I mean, that may not be the easiest place to build a road, but.
Right.
But I don't think she can build it between your property and that pond.
There's not,
either.
there's not 60 foot there. You'll have
Yeah.
to take that pond out to get 60 foot if you, and it's, like I said, the outlet to that pond comes right down there, and that's between, well, it runs right under my corner. And it runs all the way down my east fence line. It's
Does it, yeah.
a big old wash down through there.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it was yeah. And like I said, just FYI, that to the east of that pond is always wet.
I don't think it's that wet.
Well,
So would there
That's-
be any restrictions as to putting in culverts?
not if it's on her
No.
property.
Land there, so I think
Yeah.
it's off of the
She
pond.
could, she had wanted to put in culverts to deal with the moisture problem.
It's a private driveway, the way I look at it. She
Yeah,
can
this
put
is a
in any
private
culvert
driveway.
that
It's
she
not a county
wants.
road, it's
Any way
private.
she wants to take care of water is really up to her.
Mm.
So we don't have any decision on that at all. I still would like to just send it back to the planning, and until they get the resolution to all of these questions, it should never come before us.
Okay.
So I guess I would move that we send it back to the planning department with the new information that has been presented, and review it and then come back to us.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to table this action and send it back to planning to hopefully resolve some of the questions that have been brought forth today. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, keep trying this thing.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It's the hardest one we've had. The hardest ones we've had.
Boy, no kidding. We've been up and back. We've been up and back and up and back, and man, oh man, old Dent didn't know he made such a mess. Okay, we got the final plat done. Got that tabled.